Hello everyone, it's lovely to see you again. I wonder how you've all been this week. We've had glorious sunny weather, haven't we? But it's not quite so sunny today. Well, I've just been doing a bit of tidying up and look who I found. Can you tell what it is? It's a duck. He's a bit of a funny looking duck, but he's got very big duck feet and a very big duck bill. And that got me thinking about today's story. There aren't any ducks in the story, but there's certainly water and there's things floating in the water. So here is Mary to tell you the story. We're looking forward to that, are we? Yep, we are. Thank you, Mary.
Hello. It's lovely to share another Bible story with you. At the end of our stories about Joseph, we heard that his father Jacob and all his brothers and their families all went to live in Egypt, where Joseph had become very important, and they could all live there where there was plenty of food. And they stayed there. They stayed there for many years. And those brothers and their families had children, and they grew up, and they had children, and they grew up, and they had children. And in the end, there were loads and loads of Israelites living in Egypt. And they did very well. They worked very hard, and there was plenty of food, so they grew strong and healthy. The only person who wasn't very happy about that was the king, was the Pharaoh. And he thought to himself, well, I don't know about all these Israelites in my country. Supposing they get fed up with me and they want to take over the country. I'm not very happy about that. So all the families were very worried what was going to happen, because they'd heard the king wasn't very happy that there were so many Israelites. And today's story is about one of those families. There was a mum and a dad, and there was a big sister, and there was also a baby. And they were Israelites living in Egypt. And one day they heard terrible news. They heard that the king had decided that there were too many Israelites in his country, and his way of getting rid of some of them was to take away the baby boys. Oh no, thought this family. What about our baby boy? We don't want him taken away from us. So they did their very best to keep the baby quiet, so nobody would know he was there. Certainly not the king's soldiers that might take him away. But the thing is, you know about babies, don't they? They laugh and they shout and they do a bit of singing and they cry. So it was really difficult to keep the baby a secret, to keep him hidden. And in the end, they realised they couldn't do it anymore. They just couldn't keep him secret. So what on earth were they going to do? Well, somebody came up with a plan. They thought, we'll hide him away from the house, then nobody will know he's here. So what they did was they made a basket, sort of a bit like this one, and they put tar around the outside to make it waterproof. And then they put the baby into the basket. It's a funny thing to do, isn't it? And they took the basket to the river. Here's my river. So there they were at the river, and they put the baby in amongst the bulrushes where he was hidden away, and nobody would see him and hopefully not hear him. And then the mum and the dad went back home so nobody would be suspicious. But the girl, the big sister Miriam, she hid amongst the bulrushes and was keeping an eye on her baby brother, hoping that nothing bad happened to him, including crocodiles coming up. This was not a good time. She was very scared, I expect. I think I would have been very scared. And the mummy and the daddy were very upset. But God had a plan. Because after a little while, Miriam could hear somebody coming. And who was coming down to the river to have a bath in the river was the princess, the Pharaoh, the king's own daughter. And as she got to the river, she could hear a noise, an unexpected noise. "What's that noise?" she said to her servants. "Go and find out what it is that's making that noise." And so the servants went off. And of course, they found the baby in the basket and they brought it to the princess, to the Pharaoh's daughter. "Oh, what a lovely baby," said the Pharaoh's daughter, the princess. "I would love to take him back to the palace. Ooh, but I don't want to do all that nappy changing and night feeds and all that kind of thing. What I could do with is someone to look after him until he's a bit more grown up." Well, of course, who was listening to what she said but Miriam? And Miriam went running up to the princess and said, "Oh, do you need somebody to look after the baby till he's a bit more grown up?" The princess said, "Yes, I do. Do you know anyone?" "Oh, yes, I do," said Miriam. "I know someone who would look after that baby for you." Who do you think she went and got? Yeah, of course, she went and got her mum. So she came back with her mum. And the princess said, "Will you look after this baby for me till he's a bit more grown up?" "Oh, yes," said his mummy. "Of course I will." And that's what happened. The baby went home with his real mum and his sister. "Oh, by the way," said the princess, "I'm going to call him Moses because that means brought out of the water. Okay? So will you remember to call him Moses, please?" And so she handed the baby over. And he went home with his mum and his sister, and the princess went back to the palace. Now, what's going to happen next to Moses? Well, you'll have to find out. He had a very adventurous life. But that's for another time, for next time. Even though it was a scary situation, God had a plan. God was there looking after the baby and the mum and the dad and the sister. Because they were following him, he was able to work in their lives. And God is looking after us too. Even though things sometimes are a bit rubbish and a bit worrying and we're sad, God is looking after us too. So let's thank God and ask him to help us to remember that he is looking after us. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you that you love us and you look after us and keep us safe. Help us to remember that when we are scared or lonely or sad, that you are with us and you love us and you have a plan for our lives too. Thank you for being there. Amen. Lovely. I was thinking about what we could do to remember that story. And I was thinking that maybe when you have your next bath, maybe tonight, you could play out that story about Moses. Maybe you've got a boat and some waterproof toys, and you could make Moses in the boat, rocking up and down in his basket boat. And maybe you've got a sponge and another doll, and you could make Miriam hiding behind the bush, looking out for the princess coming and rescuing the baby in the basket. I just thought that might be quite a fun thing to do to help us to remember that story. Be nice to see you again and listen to if you did that. Anyway, until next time, bye.
Well, thank you, Mary, for telling us a story about baby Moses and his sister Miriam, and what an amazing adventure he started on with God, looking after him. And I think there's some great ideas, isn't there? Mary said you could act out the story in the bath, you know, when you're at bath time with some of your bath toys. And you could also do some sinking and floating experiments, couldn't you? Because the basket with the baby in floated on the water. So I wonder if you can find things that will float and things that will sink. That might be fun. You could do that out in the garden too. Maybe you could try making a basket and seeing if that floats. I wonder what you could make it out of. That would be something you could do this week as well to remind you of the story. Well, that's all for this week. We'll be back again next week with the next part of Moses' adventure with God. I wonder what's going to happen then. It's exciting, isn't it? And remember, we can have adventures with God too when we follow him and we listen to him and we do as he asks us to do. Because we know he loves us, we can trust him for the best for us. And we can start on our very own adventures with him. So have a great week and we'll see you all next time. Bye. Duck says bye too. Bye.